Hello and welcome to another video on my tutoring channel. So we are going to C# basics here, and as always, go ahead and follow me on GitHub, visit my website. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and stuff. So in this one, we are going to be talking about the very basic operations, mathematical operations that you can do in C#. So let's get to it. So let's get Visual Studio here. As always, the code is available online. So just go to my C# for students, and then here you have Free Code Camp, and then here you have the menu, and we are doing basic operations, math, numbers. And I will of course be putting this link in the video description so you can find it easily. Right then, so let's go ahead. Oh, let me just put this on my other monitor so I can look at it as my notes while I'm recording the video. Yes sir, there we go. Okay, all right then, so let's go ahead and create a new project. There it is. Let's call this basic math operations. Okay, .NET 8. Okay, all right then, so the four basic operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, right? So let's do that. So first I need two numbers, so I'm going to say var first number equals 10, and then I'm going to say var second number equals 20. So let me go ahead and do addition. So I'm going to say var addition equals first number plus second number. Then I'm going to say var subtraction is equal to first number minus second number. I'm going to say var multiplication is equal to first number multiply, the star is the multiplication symbol here, second number, and finally var division is equal to first number divided by second number. So there you go. Now we need to obviously show this on the screen. So let me do some string building here, right? I'm going to say var addition add string is equal to let's use the dollar notation here, make our life a little bit easy. Right, and here I'm going to say first number, some string building just to make it look a little bit pretty. So yeah, okay, then I want to put the operator here. Okay, so then I want to say second number, right? Let's again bring up the curly braces. I want to say, you don't have to actually do all these things, but I'm just trying to make it a little bit pretty. You don't have to do this when you're doing. If you don't like to string build, you can directly show the output. It's really your call. Right, but I'm just trying to make it a little bit nice, that's all. I know some students like it. So there you go. So I don't have to type this every time, so I can copy paste and only make the necessary changes. So here I'm going to say substring, mul string, and then div string. Okay, and here I just need to change the symbol to minus. This one is for multiplication, this one is for division, and here I simply need to change the variables to subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay, so and then I just need to show this on the screen. So I am going to say add string. Okay, I want the subtraction thing to come next. So there you go. So I have this one. So let's see what happens. So let's go ahead and run this. First, let's build the project. And then, okay. And there it is. So there you go. 30 minus 10, 10 and 20. This one is 0, right? So 10 divided by 20 is coming as 0. Now that is a problem because, it's not 0, right? So it's 0.5 or something, but because we used integers, so what we could do is we could try something like this. We'll do a small amount of casting. So I'm going to say This one, I'm going to call this division 2, okay? And here I am going to do like a casting where I'm going to change it from integer to a decimal value on the fly. So I'm going to say first number divided by decimal, the second number. Now let's try that one more time. So let's copy this and then paste it. Let's call this div string 2, and then here I am going to say division 2, and then let's try to show that. Let's see if this makes a difference. There it is. So we are getting the expected value. So what happens is, when you're working with variables in C#, if you're using integer numbers, then the result is also going to be an integer value. So that is why when you see this output, you do something like 10 divided by 20. Now you and I know that when you divide a number by another number, if they're not wholly divisible, then you would get a decimal value. However, they both are starting as integers. So when you use them here as integer and here as integer, the result is also going to be an integer. There's no room to put decimal values or floating values and stuff like that. So what I did here is I decided to do what is called as casting. So casting is a process where you take a value which is in one type. In this case, you're taking it as an integer, and then you're on the fly, on the spot, you're converting that into a decimal value. So if this is 10, it becomes 10.0 at that point. And same thing here. So if this is 20, it becomes the decimal value 20.0. That means, so when you divide two decimal values, this will also become decimal. You can see it right there. When you put your cursor on top of the variable, it clearly says that it has become a decimal value. Now, if I put the cursor here, you can see that has become an integer because on the right side, they are integer values. So something to think about when you're working with numbers and casting and so on. So there you go. So here I am explicitly telling them that, yes, please turn that into a decimal. Now, another thing which I could do is I can go back and change this to decimal in the first place. So that's also one way of doing it. But I don't really care for decimal when it comes to addition, subtraction, multiplication, because the output for those things are fine. The only place where I'm facing some challenges is when I'm dividing. So it makes sense to only use the casting here. But again, as always, there are multiple ways to doing things. So here I feel this is the better way of doing it. But if you want to, you can go back and make the original values themselves decimal to start with, so you don't have to do this. So that's really your call. So those are the 4 basic operations that you'll see in in mathematics, and there are a lot of other operators. We'll talk about it in the future videos. Now something else, that's what I was doing, casting. While doing math, I just did that. Now you can also use parentheses to give like a priority or something. So let's give that also a quick demo. So let's say I'm trying to let's say there is a third number. Okay, so I'm going to say var third number 30. So what happens when you do add them? So here let's say let's do multiplication. It becomes more. Let's say let's do multiplication and division. So let's say I will come here, and then I am going to say var operation 1. Okay, and I want to say first number plus second number divided by third number. So what will happen here? Right now I might assume that these two things will get added. So 10 plus 20, that is 30, and then 30 divided by 30 becomes 1. So I am expecting, I'm just saying, just for the sake of discussion, so I'm expecting 1 as the result. So let's see what happens. Okay, I go here and I'm getting 10. But in my head, I kind of assume that I might get 1. But the reason why it is 10 is because, so, like you have here, right? You have second number. This is a division operator. So division takes what is called as precedence. So it has a higher priority in a mathematical equation. So you may have probably already learned about this in your math classes. Even in basic math classes, they'll tell you that you're supposed to do something first in an equation, like division comes first and then addition. So here division happens first. So 20 divided by 30 happens first, and then this happens because that has a lower priority. That is why the output is 10, not 1, where like I imagine. Now another reason why we are not getting anything here is because they are both decimal. So what I could do is I could cast them into decimal so I get a more accurate response. So I'm gonna cast them like I did before. Let's see now what happens. So now I'm getting 10.666. Now before it was just 10 because we just use integers everywhere. So the decimal value was lost during the equation being processed. But once we cast them into decimal, we are getting a more accurate result. Now, what if I do want to prioritize these two things first? So what if I want to do 10 plus 20 first and then let that be divided by the third number? Now, there is a way to force or override the precedence using parentheses, right? So let's try that. So I'm going to say var operation 2 is equal to, so it's the same thing really. So I'm going to copy that and let me just copy the whole thing. This is going to be operation 2. Now what I'll do is I'll put an extra pair of parentheses. Now the moment you put parentheses, so I am telling the code, I'm telling the computer, the compiler, whatever runs in the engine here, I'm telling them, you know what, I've used parentheses, so I would like you to prioritize the first two things. Do the math addition together and then go ahead with your division operation. So now I would get the result, which is 1, and it's probably going to be 1.0 because I am casting them. So here I'm casting, so that also takes priority. So this takes precedence. So this also becomes a decimal value, and then this is a decimal value as well. So let's give it a try. So let's see what happens. Operation 2, and I am getting 1. So, and it is a whole number, so there's no need to show the decimal value. So there you go. So that's what I'm talking about. So here by default, the division operation takes precedence, and then the remaining things happen. But here, by using parentheses, I was able to override the default precedence. So the addition operation happens first, followed by the division. So you'll be doing these kind of precedence things all the time, when you're implementing complex algorithms or something like that. Although this doesn't happen as often as you might think. But yes, if you're working on a project where math operations are important or something, you would probably end up doing this. But then again, if you're doing something which is complex, scientific and math operations, you probably use some kind of a math library, or there's a dedicated math class. We'll talk about classes and stuff like that in a future video. So available with Microsoft, which will do these things for you. But yes, operator precedence is an essential knowledge, and you should know how that works. So that's about the precedence thing. So now let's talk about these remaining thing, which is incrementing and decrementing operations. Another thing which we'll do a lot in programming, especially when you're working with loops and collections. So let's say I want to increase a number. So let's take var some number is equal to 7. Now I want to increase it by 1. So I'm going to say some number is equal to some number plus 1. So there we go. Console.writeLine some number. Now when I see it, it would have become 8. It is 8. Let's keep going. So another way of doing that is I can say something like some number plus plus. So now if I check it, plus plus is an increment operator. So it's like a shortcut for this. So now it should become 9. Yes, it is. So let's keep going. So what if I want to do something which is more than 1, but I don't want to do it this way. I want to type this much. So I could use the plus equals. So some number plus, I want to increase it by 5. So I'm going to say 5. So again, let me try the console line. So now so here it became 8. Okay, and here it became 9. So now I'm adding 5, so it should become 9 plus 5 equals 14. Let's confirm our guess. There you go. Now you can use this with other operators as well, but usually we use it with plus and minus. So let's do some subtraction as well. So let me bring it back down to 7. So I'm going to say some number equals minus equals 5. I'm doing the reverse, so it goes back to 9. Let's do that console.writeLine again. So let's see if it became 9. Let me just finish the whole thing. So now I want to minus equals. I want to do a minus minus. So I'm going to say some number minus minus. Hold on 1 second. Right, sorry about that. So some number minus minus, so then it goes back to 8. And finally, let me put a console.writeLine for that. And lastly, let's use a very simple way of reducing it. Some number is equal to some number minus 1. And then this will make it go back to the initial value of 7. Again, let's copy paste that. So let's see if this works. So there you go. There it is. It was 7, then it became 8. Then it became 9, then it became 14, went back to 9, went back to 8, and eventually came back to the initial value 7. There you go. I think I just didn't show it in the beginning. Let me just put this here just for the sake of clarity. Okay, there you go. So yeah, there you go. It started life as 7, became 8, became 9, became 14, went back to 9, went back to 8, went back to the initial value 7. So that is another way you can increment and decrement values. Plus plus is something you'll see a lot when you're working with loops and collections. Plus equals not as frequently as plus plus and minus minus, but you will use it on occasion, and there you go. That is how you go ahead and increment the values, and that works with all the operators. But I'll leave the I don't want to bore you, as it is. I teach very slowly, so I don't want to do every operator and bore you even more. I'm sure you can experiment on your own for star and division and stuff like that. So there you go. That is what this video was all about. Let me just make sure I check my notes that I've covered everything I wanted to cover. Increment, decrement. Okay, yeah, there you go. That's all there is to it. So yeah, as always, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.